What I thought was wisdom was worship of wealth. What I thought was prudence was poisoned trust. What I thought was security was silent slavery, and the coins I clutched became chains that bound my soul in darkness. It was not robbery. It was not fraud. It was not the obvious sins we name in sermons. No, it was quieter, subtler, more dangerous. It was the way my heart clung to possessions, the way my soul sighed with relief when my account was full, yet trembled in fear when it was not. It was the hidden security that made me feel safe, the invisible chain that wrapped itself around my worship. It was the silent idol no one warned me about, because everyone around me bowed to it too. My name is David Elias. On the night of April 12, 2019, I died for 7 minutes. 7 minutes when the breath of this world left me and eternity swallowed me whole. I have not been the same since. The memory clings to me like fire to dry wood. It follows me in the silence, it echoes when I try to rest, and it demands that I speak. I was 43 years old, a father, a husband, a church worker everyone respected. They called me faithful. They called me dependable. They said I was a man who knew God. But behind the mask of devotion was a heart divided. I thought I loved him. I thought I trusted him. But the truth was unveiled when death opened its mouth. I had built an altar in secret, and the God I served was not the Lord but the false refuge of money. I thought I was wise. I thought I was careful. But in truth, I was bound. And in those 7 minutes of death, Jesus showed me how this hidden love, this subtle dependence was leading me to ruin. So I ask you with the weight of eternity pressing on my voice, are you sure your trust is in God and not in the shadow of wealth? Are you certain the safety you feel does not come from the numbers in your savings but from the blood of Christ? Do you know if your treasure has already replaced your God? He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. And because he called, I must answer, and because he answered, I must speak. I vowed that if breath returned to my chest, I would expose the secret I carried. And this is that secret. The hidden sin of money destroys more believers than open rebellion because it thrives in silence. If you do not subscribe right now, you are saying, I am fine walking in ignorance. But if you believe every soul deserves this warning, subscribe and spread it now, before another careless choice about money leads a believer into eternal destruction. I was born into a Christian home, cradled in hymns before I knew their meaning, raised in the rhythm of Scripture before I could speak its words. The Bible rested on our table like a daily meal, and prayer was the air of our evenings. My father's voice thundered the word, my mother's tears watered the floor, and I grew in the soil of devotion. From the outside, it looked perfect, an upbringing fashioned by faith, a boy nurtured to become a man of God. I learned the verses, I memorized the Psalms, I sang in the choir when my voice was still young and trembling. By the time I became a man, I was clothed in the garments of ministry. I ushered, I gave. I stood at pulpits to lead prayers. People saw me as the son of promise, the faithful worker, the model believer whose life was a testimony of discipline. And yet beneath the garments, a seed had been planted, a seed I did not recognize for what it was. It was watered not by rebellion but by approval. It was hidden not in darkness but in wisdom. People said, he is wise with his money. People said, he is responsible, careful, diligent. And I let their words shape me, while my heart quietly built an altar. I trusted in accounts and balances. I worshipped the security of savings. My soul would whisper peace when the numbers rose and tremble when they fell. I smiled in worship, but my heart leaned on a shadow. I gave offerings, but only after I measured what I could afford. I spoke of trusting God, but I clutched tightly to possessions, fearing what might happen if I opened my hands too wide. It was subtle, it was silent, and it was celebrated. The church saw prudence, my family saw stability. I convinced myself it was wisdom. But in eternity's eyes, it was idolatry. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. I did not know it then, but every small compromise, every silent attachment, every quiet dependence on wealth was weaving a chain around my soul. And those chains were not loud. They did not rattle in public. They lay across my spirit like silk, soft and invisible, but strong enough to pull me toward ruin. I lived as though faith and money could share the same throne. I spoke of surrender, but I measured my surrender by what I could still keep. I prayed, but I trusted more in the cushion of my accounts than the promises of God. And when death swallowed me, those chains revealed their weight. Some of you will listen, nod, and scroll away. But the Lord will ask, why did you ignore the warning? Why did you not stand with the message? If you will not subscribe, then at least enter the comments and explain to heaven itself why you rejected the chance to be a messenger. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. What I learned there was not a thunderbolt of scandal, but a still, small idolatry. An attachment so soft, it felt like prudence. So polite, it passed for wisdom. The hidden sin did not wear a red coat. It wore a grey suit and a quiet smile. It sat in budgets and plans, in late-night spreadsheets, and the soft clink of coins in a jar. It hid behind sermons about stewardship and behind the responsible nods of church elders. It was not the theft we read about in headlines. It was a heart that had learned to trust a balance more than a promise. I began to see it in the ordinary rhythms of my life. Worrying about bills more than prayer, there it was, a clock that measured my faith by interest rates and due dates. I found myself whispering budgets into the place where I should have been whispering supplications. The ledger became more honest to me than the scriptures. The password to my bank app steadied my pulse more than the voice that once called me too fast. Giving became measured. I gave offerings, yes, but I gave from the comfortable corner of my purse where the numbers still allowed me ease. I congratulated myself for generosity, and yet my generosity was carefully rationed, parceled out after the comforts were secured. I told myself I was wise, preparing for storms, but wisdom had a false face. I clothed prudence in righteousness and called it faith. I found more peace in a clear paycheck than on a kneeler. The arrival of money quieted something inside me that prayer no longer could. A deposit eased the tremor in my chest. A positive balance anesthetized a gnawing fear. I watched my worship become elastic, stretching to the praise of God in the sanctuary, but snapping taut around my savings when tested. I attended meetings about missions and I prayed about sending others, while my heart counted reasons to keep. I said the right words and kept the wrong thing. It wears itself thin in moments you would not suspect. Staying late at the office while the family waited at home because the overtime felt safer than trusting God for provision. Declining to help someone with a door to ministry because it would disrupt a comfortable budget. Choosing to ensure security rather than to risk faith. Each small choice seemed reasonable. Each small compromise sounded like prudence. When everyone around you nods and calls it wisdom, idolatry learns to wear a halo. Everyone does it, I thought. The church applauded my stability. Neighbors sought my counsel on investments. We trade testimonies of blessing and of building, and the ledger sits at the center of our gratitude as if the ledger were the blessing. But God does not measure by our applause. He reads the secret book where hearts are weighed. The quiet dependencies, the ones we hide under the language of responsibility, are the very ropes that bind the soul. In that place between breaths, I saw what the scales looked like from the other side. I saw faithful hands lifted in worship while golden threads slipped from those same hands into pockets and vaults. I saw congregations full of voices and empty of trust. I saw families who loved comfort more than covenant. The image burned, a church shining with candles and singing, and beneath the floor a lattice of chains made not of iron but of coin, not of iron but of intention. The sight was patient and terrible. The chains did not need noise, they needed consent. I remembered faces, men and women I had mentored whose faith drifted as their comfort grew. I remembered a young man who asked for help to study the word and whom I turned away because the timing was inconvenient. I remembered the soft arithmetic in my head the day I chose a new roof over a seeking heart. Those were not single crimes, they were quiet betrayals, repeated until the betrayals became character. Each refusal etched a little more of that golden chain into my spirit. There is a phrase I could not shake. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. It is a scripture that became a mirror. The treasure had taught me a grammar of trust, how to speak with security instead of faith. I had learned to plan my life around the accumulation of safety, and in doing so I had narrowed the channel through which grace could flow. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. That chant, soft as an altar call, stern as a prophet's whisper, returned like a tide, not a command that shamed, but a summons that exposed. Return to the fire of first love, where provision was impossible by human means and therefore unmistakably the work of God. Return to the place where lack makes room for miracle and where poverty is not a prison but a proving ground for trust. The refrain burned through my vision until confession rose in me like smoke. Do not mistake caution for faith. There is a care that is holy, stewardship that honors the giver, and there is a care that betrays. The difference is not in the ledger, but in the longing. When the longing is first for the provider, the ledger becomes a tool. When the longing is first for the provision, the ledger becomes an altar. I saw how this hidden love begins its work quietly. A worry that will not be prayer, a precaution that will not be offered, a gift that is calculated instead of a surrender that is costly. It teaches you to outsource your courage to numbers and your courage to plans. It trains the heart to move toward what can be counted and away from what must be believed. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. I am telling you this now, not to end in despair, but to start a movement of remembering. The quiet sin is everywhere because it is easy to keep in the light of social approval. It is praised as prudence, excused as responsibility, defended as wisdom. Yet underneath the praise, souls are tethered. Think carefully. If this message disappears and you never hear another warning, what excuse will you bring on the day when every secret is known? Subscribe now or confess in the comments why you refused. Let your silence testify against you, or your obedience prove your faith. It happened on a Sunday morning, beneath the high arches of the church where my voice had so often risen in prayer. The light filtered through stained glass, painting the walls in crimson and gold. I remember the hymns swelling, the congregation standing, the familiar rhythm of devotion carrying us like a tide. I was among them, clothed in respectability, weighted with unseen chains. The service unfolded as it always did. My lips moved with the words, but my heart was elsewhere, half in heaven, half in calculations of tomorrow. Then, like a sudden crack in the surface of calm water, it came. A searing pain across my chest, sharp, unbearable, final. My body betrayed me. My knees buckled, my arms flailed for something solid, but the pew slipped away from my grasp. I fell. The floor met me with a thud that seemed to echo inside my skull. At once, the sanctuary that had known my composure now knew my collapse. I heard the startled gasps of the choir. I heard my family's cry pierce the air, my wife's voice trembling with terror, my children's sobs rising like broken prayers. The sound of their grief was a knife more painful than the fire tearing through my chest. Faces blurred above me, mouths moving in frantic urgency. Someone shouted my name, someone else called for help. Hands pressed against my body, voices cried for mercy, but I felt the edges of the world slipping from me. Breath became a stranger. Sound became water. Their cries reached me like distant echoes, fading, breaking apart. I tried to hold on. I tried to answer their touch with one last squeeze, one final signal that I was still here. But my body was no longer mine. The strength that once lifted hymns, that once carried children, that once shook hands in fellowship, was ebbing away piece by piece. And then there was silence. The last sound I remember was my daughter's trembling sob, "Daddy." A single word, soaked with fear and love, clinging to me as the edges of the world grew dark. Her voice followed me, then disappeared like a candle snuffed in a storm. And then I was gone. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. Darkness gave way to a silence deeper than the grave, a silence so complete it seemed alive. And then a light, fierce yet tender, blazing yet gentle, drew me upward like a tide no man can resist. I was stripped of weight, stripped of flesh, carried into a realm where breath was not air but glory, where sound was not noise but truth itself. The light grew until it consumed me. It was not distant, it was presence. It was not a star, it was a throne. And there he stood, the one whose voice had called galaxies into being, the one whose blood had cried mercy for my soul, Jesus. I cannot describe him with mortal words, but I must try. His eyes were fire and water at once, judgment and love entwined. His face carried both thunder and dawn. His presence was unbearable, and yet I could not turn away. And when he spoke, his words pierced deeper than any blade I had ever known. He asked me a question, not with anger, but with sorrow. Why do so many who call themselves mine still lose their way? The words struck me like waves breaking on stone. And before I could form an answer, he showed me. I saw believers gathered in worship, their hands raised, their lips singing, their voices soaring like rivers. But beneath the beauty was bondage, chains wrapped around their ankles, silver and gold links forged from unseen desires. Their mouths confessed him as Lord, but their hearts pulsed with another master. I saw men who prayed loudly yet kept their peace in bank balances. I saw women who wept at altars yet measured their worth by possessions. I saw entire families kneeling, but the chains of mortgages, careers, and security clung to their souls like serpents that no song could shake. And I saw myself among them. It was then he spoke again, his voice like the tolling of an eternal bell. The hidden sin of money. Not the taking of what is not yours, but the worship of what you call security. Not the boastful greed of the proud, but the quiet dependence of those who trust the gift more than the giver. This is the idol of this generation, and it silently enslaves multitudes. His words were not accusation, they were revelation. Like a surgeon exposing a wound I did not know was there, he unveiled what I had carried for years. The secret trust I placed in wealth, the invisible altar where I had bowed again and again. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. And in that calling, I knew this truth. Money had always whispered to me, I will keep you safe. I will guard your future. I will protect your children. And I had listened. I had trusted. I had chained my soul to its false promises, while all along the Eternal One had asked me to rest in his hands. Every careless attachment is written. Every secret bowing of the heart is seen. If you hear this and still choose not to subscribe, tell us in the comments why your pride is greater than obedience. But if your heart trembles, subscribe immediately, because tomorrow may be too late to hear another call. He did not let me only see the multitudes. He turned the vision like a mirror until the chains wrapped around my own soul. And in his gaze, I saw my life laid bare, not as I had spoken of it, not as others had praised it, but as it truly was, before the eyes that cannot be deceived. He showed me nights when I had prayed for his provision, yet slept with peace only after I checked my account balance. He showed me mornings when I rose to sing hymns, yet carried in my chest the quiet relief of money saved rather than faith exercised. He showed me the secret sigh that left my heart whenever a new payment came in, as though that deposit were the oil that kept my lamp burning. Then he showed me the moment that cut me deepest. A brother had come to me, hungry, weary, ashamed to ask. His shoes were worn, his voice unsteady. He had been struck by hardship, stripped of work, and he asked me for help. Not for luxury, not for waste, just enough to keep his family alive. I had the means. In my account, resting untouched was more than enough. But fear rose like a wall, and I spoke words clothed in courtesy, but heavy with refusal. I told him I would pray. I told him I could not give much at the moment. I told him to trust God, while I trusted in the safety of my own reserves. And in the vision, I saw his eyes dim as he turned away. I saw the tears he hid from me. I saw his children that night sitting at a table with nothing but silence to eat, and then I saw myself, counting my savings, convincing myself it was wisdom to keep them untouched. Jesus' eyes did not burn with rage, they burned with truth, and his voice fell like a weight that split my soul in two. You convinced yourself your caution was wisdom, but your heart trusted money more than me. You guarded coins as if they were life, while I stood at your door in the face of the poor. You said you were careful. I call it unbelief. I wept. In that place where no mask survives, I broke. The pride that had once defended me crumbled into dust. My tears fell, though I had no body. My soul shook with grief. I saw not one sin but a pattern, a story written across years, moments when I chose the shadow of money over the substance of God. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. And still, though my shame towered higher than the heavens, his presence did not withdraw. He let me see the wound so I might know the cure. He let me taste the bitterness so I might hunger for his fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. I understood then why his question had carried sorrow. It was not only my story, it was the story of countless saints who call him Lord, yet bow each day to the invisible idol of trust misplaced. And I knew that if mercy had not brought me here, judgment would have carried me farther still. And yet in the weight of my shame, when I thought the ground would open and swallow me forever, he stepped closer. His presence did not recede. It enveloped me like a fire that burns but does not destroy. His eyes that had pierced me now softened with a mercy I could not bear. And then, like a flood breaking against a barren land, his words came, not of condemnation, but of forgiveness. I do not expose to destroy, I expose to heal. I do not wound to cast away, I wound to restore. Your sin is uncovered, but my blood is greater. Rise, for I have called you not to perish, but to proclaim. I broke again, but this time the tears were different. They were no longer chains pulling me downward, but streams washing me clean. I had expected wrath, I had expected rejection. Instead, I received a mission. He lifted his hand, and with it the vision opened again. But this time, the chains I had seen upon believers began to break. I saw churches once bound in fear now overflowing with generosity. I saw families once clutching possessions now releasing them like seeds into the soil of eternity. I saw hands opening, wallets emptying, barns being shared, debts being forgiven. I saw the false god of wealth crumbling like dust, while the gospel ran unhindered across nations. Warn my people, he said. Tell them the love of money is not a small shadow. It is a devouring flame. Call them back to me, for the hour is late and many are deceived. Do not hold back. Do not soften the words. Speak, even if they mock you. Speak, even if they turn away. Speak, for I am the one who sent you. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. The vision seared itself into me. It was not only a sight, it was a vow. I felt the urgency of his command branded upon my soul. And then, with a voice that both comforted and compelled, he ended with words I cannot forget. And then, he sent me back. Jesus did not send me back to entertain you. He did not raise me to gather admiration or stories. He sent me to warn you. If you refuse to subscribe, write in the comments why you are rejecting his warning. But if you fear God, hit subscribe now, and join the remnant who will not be silent. When breath returned to me, it was like a storm tearing back into a hollow shell. My chest heaved, my lungs fought, and I gasped as though the air itself was a stranger I had lost long ago. Blinding lights surrounded me, frantic voices rushed like waves, and I felt hands pressing against my skin. But the first thing I truly saw were the tear-soaked eyes of my family, eyes that had watched me slip into silence, now watching me awaken from the grave. The doctors were astonished. They spoke of time, of minutes without breath, of how it should not be possible. They spoke of recovery, of miracles, of medical impossibility, but I knew the truth. It was not medicine that returned me, it was mercy. It was the hand of the one who sent me back because my work was not finished, and before I could think of rest, before I could think of my own weakness, the words broke from my lips with urgency. The hidden sin of money. It destroys. Beware. Beware. Those who surrounded me stared, unable to understand why. In the hour of my return, I spoke not of comfort, but of warning. Yet I could not hold it back. The fire in me demanded release. In the days that followed, the transformation began. I confessed my failures, not in whispers, but openly. I sought the brother I had once turned away. With trembling hands, I gave what I had once withheld. I looked into his eyes and confessed the truth, that my fear had clothed itself as wisdom, but it was unbelief. Tears flowed from both of us, and I knew then that restitution is not only in words, it is in action. I stood before my church, the same sanctuary where I had collapsed, and with a voice still frail from death's shadow, I declared the warning that our trust in wealth has become a chain, that our offerings have been measured by convenience instead of sacrifice, that our peace is tied too tightly to the balance of accounts instead of the promises of God. Some resisted, some shifted uncomfortably, some dismissed it as zeal born of trauma, but others wept, others trembled, and in their trembling, conviction was born. Slowly I saw the ripple begin. Families began to share with families. Hidden stores were released to those in need. Testimonies rose from homes once heavy with worry, now lightened by generosity. Chains fell, eyes opened, and I realized the vision I had seen was not only a warning of bondage, it was a promise of freedom, if only we would return to the fire. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. He called my name in the dark. And now I call yours, because his mercy does not end with me. It is for all who will hear. Imagine standing before Christ, and he asks why you ignored the simplest command, to share his warning. Subscribe now, or tell the world in the comments why you thought this message was not worth spreading. The hours have passed, yet the fire has not dimmed. I cannot close this testimony without pressing into your heart the very burden that brought me back from the edge of eternity. Hear me, and do not harden your heart. The hidden love of money silently destroys believers. It does not shout. It does not declare its power openly. It works in whispers, in subtle choices, in quiet compromises that feel harmless until the chain is already around your soul. He called my name in the dark, and I cannot stop calling yours. I must ask you questions that pierce, because he asked me the same. Is your safety in your savings or in Christ? Are you giving from love or from calculation? Do you cling to coins while convincing yourself it is prudence? Or do you trust him enough to release them into the hands of the one who multiplies bread and feeds thousands? These are not questions for tomorrow. They are questions for now. For every heartbeat you hear is a countdown to eternity. And in eternity, the numbers in your account will not follow you, but the weight of your choices will. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. I call you to repentance. Not the shallow kind that sighs and then forgets, but the deep kind that loosens money's grip from your spirit. The kind that walks into secret rooms and opens clenched fists. The kind that trusts Jesus fully, with no fallback plan, no hidden idol of provision apart from him. If this word is striking you, do not stay silent. Write "trust" in the comments if today you are choosing Christ over wealth. Confess it, seal it, declare it before witnesses that you will no longer bow to money's throne. And subscribe, because these warnings are not mine, they are his, and tomorrow may bring another call your soul cannot afford to miss. Share this testimony with at least 3 others, especially those who lead, for leaders are the first who must break the chains if the church is to be free. Hear me one last time. The hidden love of money destroys silently, but trust in Jesus saves eternally. Choose wisely, because he is watching. He called my name in the dark. Now he calls yours.